Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 194 and we have a good one for you today. Today's fish is one of those fish that I didn't know about specifically. I knew about the group of fish and I've actually really enjoyed them, for lack of a better word, but definitely didn't know the specifics on this fish. Today's fish that we're going to be talking about is bam, the wrestling halfbeak. Now, the wrestling halfbeak, or its scientific name, Darmogenous pusilla. Again, that is Darmogenous pusilla. It is part of the family Xenarchopteridae, which is the family of halfbeaks, and it's actually the family of viviparous halfbeaks. So let's not give too much away, but yes, Xenarchopteridae, or the wrestling halfbeaks family. It is native to Southeast Asia, so Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, etc. I mean, there's, basically anywhere in Southeast Asia, these fish are relatively common. These are not a fish that are in trouble, and kind of along with those lines, they're pretty generalistic on habitat as well. They're found in rivers, canals, ponds, lakes, backwaters, sloughs. I mean, basically, if there's a body of water, they can find it. They are more commonly found in areas of slack water, so where water's not moving as fast. And then there's also more commonly found around areas with a lot of vegetation. Specifically, maybe not specifically, but they really like floating vegetation or plants that reach the surface and kind of overhang on the vegetation. They like that overhead cover. And I can attest to this. I did have a halfbeak in my aquarium. It was not the wrestling halfbeak, it was the Celebes halfbeak. And they are really good in an aquarium, but they do really like those floating plants. Now, this is a small fish. Females will grow up to about 7 centimeters, which is about 3 inches, whereas males really only reached up to about 5.5 centimeters, which is about 2.2 inches. So they're not like a giant fish, but they have this elongated, slender body right here, a real flat back, eyes set up forward, pectoral fins really sort of high set on the body, really far back set dorsal fin and anal fin, and usually they're kind of like this olive green, brown. Sometimes they'll get a little more golden. They're pretty variable in colors. Even these are called platinum wrestling halfbeaks, which those are more like aquarium trade versions. But they're pretty variable in color. But apparently, I read somewhere that the color that you get actually determines the region that they came from, or the genetics came from. So while I don't think there are numerous species of this halfbeak, I do kind of think that there might be some sort of coloration differences between the regions. The coloration does not necessarily make a new species. They also usually have this coloration on the fins. You can see here, this one's very colorful. Very colorful. Even this one has coloration, going on from there. It's very there, and it's honestly a more beautiful fish than people kind of give it credit for. Let's just go with that. But how do you know realistically that you have a halfbeak? Well, if it hadn't hit you in the face, this super elongated lower jaw is a pretty good giveaway. Pretty good giveaway that you got a halfbeak. The upper jaw stops here, the lower jaw extends way out here, and in fact, only when they open their mouths, really only the upper jaw moves. Their bottom jaw really is relatively stationary, and that kind of goes along with where they are. They are primarily surface water dwellers. They really like staying up high in the water column, almost skimming the tops of the water a lot of times, And that's because they are a pretty voracious predator of those insects that fall into the fall onto water. They really scoop them up, and they'll just kind of like almost jaws bite them, from what I've seen, or at least in my experience, that's how they're doing it. It's really, really bizarre. But there is an easy way to tell females from males. And that actually has to do with what we were talking about, why they were talked about in the front. Remember, the family name was Xenarchopteridae, and which is the family. I should have done this anyway. Which is the there we go. That's what we needed. Xenarchopteridae, which is the viviparous halfbeak. And so now I should have mentioned there is one genus, the Xenarchopterus, that is actually ovoviparous, but viviparous means that they are actually live bearing. Viviparous means that they are live bearing. So there is actually internal fertilization that happens with them, and how that happens is through what is called the gonopodium. And I was kind of hoping well, actually I stand corrected. It has the andropodium, not the gonopodium. So apparently the gonopodium is only in postelids, whereas in other aspects it's called the andropodium. That is my fault. I actually thought that it had a deal, but let's see if we can have here. But okay, it doesn't have it here. Well, this picture here. So they have this modified anal fin, and I'm like 99% sure that this is a male and this is a female, and this modification to the anal fin is what is used to deliver sperm to the female. It's not 99, it's like 100% sure. I mean, without seeing them in front of you and actually holding them, you can be confused. But they have this modified anal fin that is now called an andropodium, not a gonopodium, which is a modified fin. Now, in mosquito fish, which are one of the pocelid live bearers, the gonopodium actually makes like a tube. I'm guessing the andropodium is not necessarily a tube shape. It just helps deliver it very directly into the female. So, but regardless, move on. Blah, blah, blah. This is a live-bearing species of fish, which always surprises me how many people just discover that, oh my goodness, live-bearing fish. Fish are so heavily associated with like fish eggs and things like that, that it's one of those bizarre things that still fascinates me to this day. But anyway, after a month of gestation, the female will birth 10 to 30 young. And what's interesting about this fish is if the conditions are right, by my understanding, the female will just continually reproduce throughout the entire year. They don't really have a breeding season, which is one reason why they're so popular in the aquarium trade, is because they're fairly easy to take care of and you can reproduce them. The celibate halfbeaks I had, they constantly reproduced, and to the point that it almost got annoying. Not many of them survived past the larval stage because I had other things that ate their babies, but it was still an interesting little tidbit in watching them. But that's not the interesting fact that we're going to end the video on. The interesting fact we're going to end the video on is, yes, they are very popular in the aquarium trade, but how they became popular is not necessarily for the reason you might think. Think back to the common name of this fish. It is the wrestling halfbeak. And it's called that because, and this is the only halfbeak I know that does this. Maybe the others do it, but this is the only one that I know of. The males, in terms of a territorial dispute or display or fighting over a female to reproduce, they'll actually lock their jaws together and will essentially wrestle. Now, in the wild, it more than likely the weaker one leaves fairly quickly and there's not a lot of injuries, but it can actually get fairly violent in aquariums when the weaker one has nowhere to run and has nothing to do but turn and fight. And the reason that's interesting is because these were actually used for fighting fish at one point. Sorry, my cats are going crazy. Very similar to a fish that we've talked about earlier, the betta, or the Siamese fighting fish. These fish have actually also been used in animal fighting rings throughout Asia. They're obviously not as colorful as bettas, but they are apparently really aggressive, and people loved betting on these, which was just an interesting fact. And that's why I chose this species of halfbeak, was actually just because all halfbeaks kind of have the same general characteristics, the modified anal fin, live bearing, yada yada. But this is the only one that I know of that's like, we're gonna tussle. I'm gonna protect my females by wrestling, which is just a bizarre thing. It's just amazing the adaptations that animals have. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If I do, I'd really appreciate it. Oh, my goodness, what am I saying? Thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Regardless, take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. I'm going to go work on my outro again, and peace.